In this edition of The Color Between the Lines,
We shouldn't just settle on something just because. And so when that one studio told me, well, it's a tradition, we can't change up the tradition, I was like, well, okay, then I'm going to find a studio who recognizes that we need to grow.
I'm speaking with return author Bellen Woodard. The first time I spoke with her, she was 9 years old and she had launched a book called More Than Peach. It was about getting crayons that were more than peach to represent different skin tones when you're trying to draw on a piece of paper or color in a coloring book. Well, that idea turned into a line of crayons and a big business. Now she's 11 and she's put out a new book called Ballet Brown. And she's talking to me about that. Let's listen in. Well, your book, Ballet Brown, is really based on your own experience as a young dancer searching for ballet and a costume for your ballet, based on your skin tone. Can you
Mhm.
share with me what was that moment like when you realized that you couldn't find one, and what inspired you, I guess, to write about it in a story like this?
So, what inspired me to write Ballet Brown as a story is that, well, I started ballet when I was 2 years old, and at first there weren't any dress code. There wasn't a dress code really because we were so tiny. But then eventually, as you get a little bit older, eventually you have to be put into pink tights and pink shoes and pink everything. And I started thinking to myself, well, it doesn't look like my legs belong to me. Like my legs are pink, but the rest of me isn't pink, and this doesn't match. And so I was like, okay, so first of all, why pink? Why do we wear pink? And so I started researching why ballet pink, and that is the term that's used with the pink tights, the pink shoes. The color is ballet pink. So I started researching why, and I found out that when ballet originated in Europe, the pink was used to elongate the European dancers' lines and make them look elegant and beautiful on stage. And it did do exactly that. But since then, since many beautiful colors have been added into the world of ballet, the pink doesn't give the same effect for every single skin tone like it does for the light skin tones. And so I feel like we need to evolve with we're evolving, and so the traditions need to evolve with us. And so that's why I decided to not only name my new book Ballet Brown, but Ballet Brown isn't just my book, but it's also a new term that I have coined and a new mindset that I want to promote, saying that trying to normalize equivalent options for everybody, and so that our spaces can be whole and somewhere where we can grow and thrive.
I like your book because I got a chance to read it all the way through, and I saw that when you started to talk about this with some of your instructors, some people were not as receptive. What was that like?
So it was a real experience. And as I was saying, like with the traditions, a lot of the responses are always just, it was a tradition, but we've grown so much since then. And traditions are, there's always room to grow in traditions. And so we shouldn't just settle on something just because. And so when that one studio told me, well, it's a tradition, we can't change up the tradition, I was like, well, okay, then I'm gonna find a studio who recognizes that we need to grow. And that's exactly what I did. I walked away and I found a studio that appreciated, that was willing to grow and appreciated, and it was already growing, and that was willing to be able to incorporate the brown and the other colors, not even just brown, just other colors into this world of dance and ballet.
I know that More Than Peach, that was your first book and project, and it's changed a lot of kids' minds and adults' minds on how to look at just colors and skin tones. And how has Ballet Brown, I guess, continued that mission of this whole More Than Peach project?
So when I first started, after I wrote the book More Than Peach, after I wrote the book More Than Peach after I started my business and after I made the crayons, because the crayons came first. But after I saw what big of an impact More Than Peach made and how many people actually listened, I was like, well, since I have this voice and people are listening and want to listen, then I want to do the same with Ballet Brown because I feel like this is also needed. And it's not even all just about brown shoes and brown tights. This is just about creating equivalent options for everything and for everyone, and not even just in ballet or dance, just for things across the board. And so yeah, creating Ballet Brown was just um, I I knew that I wanted to make this change again, and since I had already made this change once, I wanted to make a new change.
What kind of responses have you gotten from other kids and other parents who have picked up this book and know about your mission, especially with Ballet Brown?
I've been promoting the idea though for months and all of that, but I've gotten responses saying like when I first started my child out in ballet, I didn't know the pink actually had a history. I thought, and that's a common misconception that the pink is just a cute little color for the kids to wear, but it's really interesting to see the responses saying, "Oh, well, I actually learned something new," and I'm so excited to start my little grow out in the brown or skin color tights because now I do know the history, and that's that's definitely something that's that shows what changes is already making without the book even being out because when I start like people my age when they start they didn't know about it and they didn't know about this history and so now going into the new generations and hopefully they start out with this knowledge.
I'm wondering when you went back, I'm just going back in the story and how when you were given the option by someone, you picked up the tights that were a different color and you had to change them. You had to actually color them. How did that all come about? What did you learn about that process and was that difficult? And just kind of bring me through that whole process of doing that.
So that process is called pancaking. You actually do it to your shoes because the brown tights, I mean, a lot of they're available for other dance styles too as well, but the ballet shoes are specific for ballet. So a lot of the time, and professional ballerinas do this a lot, but they do something called pancaking, which is where you take a makeup white or makeup sponge, whatever you need, and you put foundation on it, your foundation color, and you dab it on the shoes. You basically paint the shoes and yourself. And when I first did that, I did that to my first pair of point shoes because they didn't have the brown available, so I had to kind of make my own point shoes. I just got a pink pair and painted over it. But I ended up actually ruining my shoes because I didn't know how to do it. And point shoes are not something you play about. And by the time I ordered a new pair, they were too small because they came so late. And it's just so it's it's still kind of amazing to see how it's still not that accessible even as we've grown so much and like you can walk in easily and buy a pair of pink shoes, but the brown shoes are kind of like a needle in a haystack sometimes and kind of like a hit or miss. You never know if when you go in to get fitting if you're actually going to find your pair or actually going to leave for the pair. So
Do you think that manufacturers should go in on doing a deal with Bellen and do a ballet brown line?
I think that's perfect. I mean, I've seen there are like brands that do have like separate lines of the ballet shoes, but I feel but not every brand has the different colored ballet shoes, and that's something we need.
Mm. I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of like always try to think outside the box and like how some people pick the color and they pick a chiclet of the color on online and you can pick exactly what you want.
Hmm.
That was an availability for someone, then they could pick the exact tone
Yeah.
and then order it and then get whatever tone that they want. And it,
Yeah,
just like
exactly.
makeup, you could pick up your tights.
And it's so hard because like there's so many different foot like you get when you get point shoes you get fitted and my feet are very weird and so it's so hard to get my perfect fit but different brands have different types of shoes if that makes sense. So not every brand will fit your foot and so it can be difficult when even the brand that does fit your foot doesn't even carry skin color different skin tones. So yeah, it's difficult.
What's your overall message for this book to other readers, and what do you want them to come away with?
So I think it's really important that the parent starts their kid out in ballet on the right foot because it just creates no, there's no disconnect from the very beginning. And when they go to their first little ballet recital, then they can already feel, have the same effect of the elegant, elongated lines and never have to even question why do my legs not look like they belong with me? So yeah, I think it's very important to just make sure they start out feeling like,
Included.
yeah, feeling included and feeling like they look good on stage. You don't have to stay. Like the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. And that's exactly what I did because there is somewhere waiting for you that will welcome you with open arms and somewhere that is willing to grow. And that's exactly what I got when I walked away. Now I'm at a studio and I love my studio and it's continuing to grow and yeah, and I of course nowhere is perfect, but they realize that and ready to they're ready. So yeah, so you don't have to stay and don't have to accept it just because and really challenge your curiosity because if I hadn't started researching why we wore the pink tights, maybe I was still being pink tights to this day. And so yeah, challenge your curiosity and really challenge that pushing that status quo.
I want to say congratulations on your new book. Thanks so much for joining us on the BIN.
Thank you so much. This was such an amazing experience.
If this conversation moved you, I invite you to subscribe to the Color Between the Lines podcast on YouTube, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.